Mm. Really hard time sleeping. Mm. Hey, are you awake? I cannot sleep. What? Sorry. You're having a hard time sleeping as well. Go figure, huh? Yeah, there is just an overwhelmingly large amount of things going on right now that I know neither one of us can really single-handedly do much about, let alone fix everything. So I empathize with you not being able to sleep. Do you think that you're gonna be awake for a little bit? Or should I turn the light on? Yeah. Okay. Oh. Do you know what time it is? I think my phone is dead. I honestly don't even know where I set it. Oh, it's way over there. Just don't worry about it. Do you know what time it is, though? Wow, it's late. Yeah, definitely. I wasn't anticipating being up still. It happens. No, we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much about it. I'm kind of glad that you're also awake right now because I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling a little anxious. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot going on in the world and in my world, and I'm sure in your world too. Oh my gosh, it's just a lot. been finding it harder and harder to get to sleep lately. Have you been noticing anything like that for yourself? Well, I hope you know that this is a safe space and you are more than welcome to talk to me about anything that is weighing heavily on your mind right now, or moreover, weighing heavily on your heart at this time. I know that my chest has been a little heavier than usual, just with the state of things. I've been kind of going back to the basics in terms of calming myself down and trying to relax. Deep breathing has worked really, really well for me. Just being really conscious and taking nice, intentionally big breaths in and out, and just trying to tell my body I'm safe and that it's okay to relax and calm down, even when all of my other senses might be indicating to me that this is not the time to calm down. I just know that no matter what, it's better for me to be in a relaxed place within myself when navigating the day-to-day challenges and just different trials that each new day has to offer. Yeah, I feel the same. It's a lot easier for me to make the best decisions for myself when I'm feeling relaxed. I would love to guide us in some deep breaths right now. Here, let me get in a more comfortable position. Okay. I'm gonna put one of my hands on my chest just because it helps me to monitor my breathing. Just kind of give myself that extra love and care right now, physically speaking. Go ahead and start getting nice and conscious of your breath. Your inhale, your exhale, and we're going to inhale in and out. Another deep breath in. You can rub your chest if you want to. Exhaling out. Inhale. And exhale. Breathing in. And breathing out. Sorry about my stomach. It's making some noises. I can't remember if I ate before I went to bed. I've just kind of been here, tossing and turning a little bit. Just a lot to think about, you know. Yeah, I was thinking of reading, but I didn't want to wake you up. Yeah. I might in a little bit. If I were to read, would you want to listen? Yeah, I know we did that one random evening of reading aloud, and you seem to enjoy it. Okay, sure. Well, I would be more than happy to oblige and read out loud what I've been perusing lately, which right now is this very, very worn out copy of these classic selected poems by William Blake. If you've ever heard of him. Well, these are pretty old. Let's see if it has any specific dates in here. I don't think so, but if I may recall correctly, this is from, I want to say 1700, maybe 18. I could be wrong. Either way, certainly a few hundred years at least have passed since those words were written. I think that's pretty cool. Makes it all the more fascinating to me when reading. Yeah, I hadn't considered that, but I suppose that's also true. Well, one thing that I enjoy about being awake this time of the night is that it's relatively quiet outside. Yeah, the city very rarely has off hours, but it feels like right now might be one of them. Hopefully, I didn't jinx it. You never know. At any time, the sirens could start. Seems like a relatively quiet night, all things considered, which is nice. Still hasn't helped me get to sleep, though. On a scale of 1 to 10, how tired would you say you currently are? Okay, that's not like the worst. I think I'm at like a 3. Yeah. Not the best. No, certainly not. It could be better, but I mean, hey, we're trying. Are we not? Just heard somebody talking outside. See? Looks like we're not the only ones who can't sleep. Well, maybe I will crack open the book of poems after all, if that's alright with you. Okay. Let me grab my glasses. So, like I said, these are pretty old. The contents is song from Poetical Sketches, Mad Song from Poetical Sketches, The Cynic Song from An Island in the Moon, Quid Song from An Island in the Moon, The Lawgiver's Song from An Island in the Moon. Oh, from Tyrael? Not sure what that means. In regards to that one, maybe a specific character. I've never read An Island in the Moon. Perhaps a future piece to keep by the bed. Then we have Introduction from Songs of Innocence, The Chimney Sweeper from Songs of Innocence, The Divine Image from Songs of Innocence, Holy Thursday from Songs of Innocence. Nurse's Song from Songs of Innocence. From the Book of Thiel. Never seek to tell thy love from the Rossetti MS. I asked a thief from the Rossetti MS to know Bodaddy from Rossetti MS, which is a very interesting word. No Bodaddy. Merlin's Prophecy from Rossetti MS. Not quite sure what MS stands for in this context, to be honest with you. I'll have to do some research later. The Sword and the Sickle from the Rossetti MS. Abstinence and Desire Gratified from the Rossetti MS. Eternity from the Rossetti MS. Introduction from Songs of Experience. The Clod and the Pebble from Songs of Experience. Holy Thursday from Songs of Experience. Sorry, this book is quite fragile. I don't want to break it. Also, the contents page is a lot longer than I remember it being. So I'm actually gonna wait to read any of the rest for you because we probably won't be able to get that far in just this one sitting. Unless we stay up pretty much all night reading these poems, which I would like to not do. I would like to try to get you to sleep, and for me to sleep, more realistically. But obviously, if we end up at that point, it is what it is. I just would rather not. Okay, I was right. So, it seems like... Here, let me get situated. My arm is falling asleep. Okay. So, this reads, in January 1826, so like I said, I thought it was probably the 18 or the 1700s, and it was the 1800s. William Blake was asked by a Mr. Lee to write in the autograph book of William Upcott. His entry begins, William Blake, one who is very much delighted with being in good company, born 28 November 1757 in London, and has died several times since. I would have liked to have left that as the whole account of his life, but I gather that something more is expected of me. Can wisdom be put in a silver rod, or love in a golden bowl? The answer, obviously, is no. And no more can exuberant Blake be put in a pamphlet. All that I can hope to do in this little book is to provide a sampler which will encourage people to get a hold of and read Geoffrey Keene's The Poetry and Prose of William Blake, where everything that he wrote, which had been traced by 1939, has been edited with meticulous care. Believing, as I do, that Blake is one of the very greatest of all Englishmen, my selection and my comments upon it may appear to be unduly personal and to disagree with some of the generally accepted opinions, but it is as an attempt to convert others to my belief that I have approached the problem of choosing poems which are characteristic but easily acceptable. Blake was the second son of a fairly well-to-do hosier, living above his shop at the corner of Broad Street, near Golden Square in London. As a child, he saw angels in a tree on Peckenrye and encountered the prophet Ezekiel. Put thus badly, this may sound rather strange, which it does to me. But I consider that it would be as well to deal with the common accusation of madness before getting on with the story of Blake's life. His own account of his visionary powers, given years later to the painter John Linnell, it makes clear his attitude. Blake would occasionally explain, unasked, how he believed that both Barley and I could see the same visions as he saw, making it evident to me that Blake claimed the possession of some powers only in a greater degree than all men possessed, and which they undervalued in themselves, and lost through love or sordid pursuits and pride, vanity, and the unrighteous mammon. When we take this statement in conjugation with the surroundings in which he was brought up, we may begin to understand Blake. His parents were dissenters, Moravians, and in such a strictly religious environment, it is easy to see that a child, perhaps rather a lonely and introverted child, would be inclined to people his daydreams with angels and prophets rather than with the fairies and imaginary playfellows of other children. Those who wished to believe that Blake was a mad dreamer, living in a world where his ghosts spoke more clearly than his friends, are at liberty to go on believing it. They are wrong. Blake told the young George Richmond that he could look at a knot in a piece of wood until it frightened him. If he could do that, it is easy to see how real the figures he called up with all the intensity of his burning and most unusually vivid imagination must have appeared. From a drawing school to which he went at the age of 10, Blake was apprenticed to James Besire, the engraver to the Society of Antiquaries, and, owing to trouble with the other apprentices, was sent out to draw the monuments in Westminster Abbey. There, in the mysterious half-darkness, under the lofty roof, he found that he could populate the scene with Christ and his apostles, and with processions of chanting monks. What? Yeah, I know that the language is just a little bit outdated. Or, not necessarily the language, but the writing style. Yeah, I get that. It's kind of hard to understand at times. But that's kind of why I like writing like this, to try and fall asleep. Because at some parts, in some moments, it's almost so nonsensical to my brain that I kind of let go of the need to be grasping some true, deeper understanding of things, and instead I just kind of read the words, and I keep reading the words until my brain gets tired of reading the words. Reading for me is the equivalent of going on a run, but for my brain, it's just like a workout. I don't always read for the sake of losing weight, quote unquote. There might be a different way to do this metaphor, a better way, I'm sure, but the point is, sometimes you just work out to work out because it's good for you, and you have extra energy, it makes you tired. Same thing applies here. I'm reading just to read because I'm tired. I have extra alertness that I need to get rid of, and reading is a good way to do that for me right now. Does that make sense? Yeah. No, I totally get that. I've never really thought about it that way, but I could see how it could come across like that to other people. Yeah, you must think I'm really weird, huh? That's okay. I know I'm really weird, so it doesn't bother me one bit. Where was I? Okay, hold on. Okay, so we just said think there, in the mysterious half-darkness under the lofty roof, and this is at Westminster Abbey, he found that he could populate the scene with Christ and his apostles, and with the processions of chanting monks. Even at this time, he was writing the poems which were later collected in his first unpublished book, The Poetical Sketches. The song, which I include here, is said to have been written before he was 14 years of age. That's crazy. Certainly, these poems show their influences, as one might well expect them to do. But until recently, it has been fashionable to claim that they were cut off from their own time and showed only the influence of the Bible. Milton, Spenser, and Shakespeare. That's funny. I was thinking of reading Milton tonight. What is the title of the book? Lost Paradise. A Paradise Lost. But I felt like it was gonna be too heavy-handed for me, so I went with this one for tonight. It's funny that it's mentioning Milton here. This is nonsense. Well, dramatic. This is nonsense. The major echoes are perhaps of these, but generally speaking, there is nearly as much of the influence of Thomson's The Seasons, of Chatterton, and of Collins. They are very close to the best work of these poets, and in the Mad Song we may perhaps catch an echo of Tom O'Bedlam's song from Parsi's Relics of English Poetry. The influences, wherever they came from, have been well assimilated, and that is the most one could ask for in poems written by a youth of under 20, of under 14, no less. What they set out to do, they do well. After leaving the Bashir, the young Blake worked for a while in the Royal Academy schools, and then, in partnership with James Parker, who had a fellow apprentice at Bashir's, he set up as a print seller. Oh, I misread that. Who had been a fellow apprentice at Bashir's. He set up as a print seller. Excuse me. This venture was not a success. Just before this, he had married the unlettered daughter of a Battersea market gardener, Catherine Boucher, who became his perfect companion, not only in material, but also in spiritual matters. That's a huge claim to make. Maybe it's just me, but how do you know that? How could you know that? Nosy, right? Am I right? Like, how could you be involved so deeply in their relationship where you would know those things? Anyway, I think it's just the not only materially but spiritual matters. This book already mentioned poetical sketches. Oh, excuse me. The book already mentioned poetical sketches was printed in 1783, so these are actually from the 1700s, and contains an apologetic preface, which doubtless Blake found unpalatable, by the Reverend Henry Matthew, into whose circle he had been introduced by John Flaxman. The next few years were occupied in executing engravings for the London booksellers and print publishers, and in writing poems and the strange fantasy in prose. An Island in the Moon, where, quite suddenly, Holy Thursday and the nurse's song from the Songs of Innocence break in upon the ribald world, where such songs as the two which I have given are the staple form of entertainment. In the Songs of Innocence, which some have suggested were inspired by the example of Isaac Watts, Blake becomes the master of his medium. No longer does he seem to worry about the fact that some of his rhymes are half rhymes, as we call them today, and no longer is he concerned with the need to pour his thought into the mold of another poet's form. These are poems of his own. The influence of Macpherson's turgid, long-winded Ossian is apparent in much of a long poem, Tyrael. Okay, so it's not a character, it's another poem, which he seems to have been writing during these years. It seems that the desire to make every utterance into poetry was responsible for Blake's adoption of these long lines. Much later in his life, in the address to the public at the beginning of Jerusalem, he gave a note of the measure in which the following poem is written. In this he writes, "When this verse was first dictated to me, I considered a monotonous cadence like that used by Milton and Shakespeare and all writers of English blank verse, derived from the modern bondage of rhyming, to be a necessary and indispensable part of verse. But I soon found that in the mouth of a true orator, such monotony was not only awkward, but as much a bondage as rhyme itself. I therefore have produced a variety in every line, both of cadences and number of syllables. Every word and every letter is studied and put into its fit place. The terrific numbers are reserved for the terrific parts, and the mild and gentle for the mild and gentle parts, and the prosaic for the inferior parts. All are necessary to each other. I would say that this is a mild and gentle evening, and this is maybe not the most mild and gentle book to be reading, but you know, like they said, all things have their place. Poetry fettered fetters the human race. Nations are destroyed or flourish in proportion as their poetry, painting, and music are destroyed or flourish. The primeval state of man was wisdom, art, and science. That's so true. Today especially, I feel like. This is why books are so important. This, allowing for the development of Blake's ideas and of his technique, might very well stand as a description of all the verse in his didactic books. It is equally true to say that, however much he rebelled against the modern bondage of rhyming, he continued to employ it to the end of his life, notably in the everlasting gospel, which I found too long to include here, and in the verses which he wrote in about 1818 in the verses he wrote about, not in, about 1818, for his reissue of The Gates of Paradise. The method used by Blake in the production of his books should be mentioned. By a method of his own invention, he wrote the lettering and drew the surrounding design in some sort of stopping out fluid, and then etched away the rest of the plate, thus leaving the printing surface in relief. He stated that this process was given him in a vision by the spirit of his brother Robert, who had died 1787. But various people have pointed out sources which might have suggested parts of the process to his inquiring mind. During the years from 1789 to about 1797, Blake's output was prodigious. He produced, as can be seen from the short list at the end of his note, most of his illuminated books, as well as an incredible number of drawings and paintings. In 1800, having been introduced by Flaxman, he went to stay near William Haley at Felspham in Sussex. Haley was very nearly the worst English poetester to ever achieve a reputation, and Blake's stay with him was not so happy, as can be seen from the epigrams he produced about his amiable but stupid employer. After an unpleasant incident which resulted in his trial upon and acquittal of a charge of treason, he once more settled in London, where he belonged, and where he devoted his energies to the production of the illustrations of Blair's The Grave, in which he was cheated by R.H. Cromick, who had commissioned the scheme, and in the preparation of the paintings which were to be shown at his exhibition, at his brother's house in 1809. The years between 1810 and 1818 were for the most part taken up with the production of the completed copies of his Milton and Jerusalem, only one of each being known. In 1818, he met John Linnell, who introduced him to the young men Samuel Palmer, Edward Calvert, John Giles, George Richmond, Frederick Tatham, and others who were to do so much with their administration to make the rest of his life pleasant. From 1820 onwards, once again, his output of work was staggering, including not only many separate works, but also the illustrations of the Book of Job and the Divine Comedy of Dante. When he died on August 12, 1827, a poor neighbor who had been present at the deathbed told George Richmond, "I have been at the death, not of a man, but of a blessed angel." Thus, in brief, passed the comparatively uneventful life of this great man who, throughout his days, insisted that the poetic genius is the true man. To attempt to give an account of his poetry in a page or so is quite impossible. His poems are for the most part connected with the whole body of his thought and his philosophy. He believed that eternity was continually existent, and that the true man, by exercise of his timeless memory, could converse with those who were long dead and those who were yet to come. His mysticism was practical and real, and his poems are the expression of it. In my selection here, I have tried, so far as is possible, to avoid passages which will confuse the reader by leading him into the maze of Blake's mythology. That he created a private mythology has often been held against him. But we all have our own private mythologies, and we rarely manage to make them into poems of the same magnificence or having the same universal significance. Blake's private mythology carried a general message, and we are gradually, with the patient help of various interpreters, beginning to understand these long and seemingly obscure poems. Here, the reader will find simple poems, some of them taken out of these works, which express Blake's reactions to life as he found it. I have so far, as I have been able, arranged the poems roughly in the order to which I think them to have been written, so that a gradual picture of the development from the boy who roamed from field to field to the man who, having written, thinking as I do that the creator of this world is a very cruel being, and being a worshipper of Christ, I cannot help saying, the Son, oh, how unlike the Father, could address his Jehovah Satan as, still the son of morn in weary night's decline, the lost traveler's dream under the hill, should emerge in the mind of the reader. Such of Blake's mythological personages as do appear in the poems I have given can well be ignored for the purposes of enjoyment and understanding of them as poems. I have further tried to make it clear that Blake's gifts as a lyrical poet did not suffer from the fact that he sometimes tried to make a poem carry more meaning than it could bear. The passages from the didactic works can, and should, be read along with the more simple poems of innocence and experience, of praise and abuse. Let's go ahead and read one of the poems, and then we can try and fall asleep. We'll read a few actually, they're pretty short. This is Never Seek to Tell Thy Love. Never seek to tell thy love, love that never told can be. For the gentle wind does move silently, invisibly. I told my love, I told my love, I told her all my heart, trembling, cold, in ghastly fears. Ah, she doth depart. Soon as she was gone from me, a traveler came by, silently, invisibly. Oh, was no deny. This one is called I Asked a Thief. I asked a thief to steal me a peach. He turned up his eyes. I asked a lithe lady to lie her down. Holy and meek, she cries. As soon as I went, an angel came. He winked at the thief, smiled at the dame, and without one word spoke, had a peach from the tree, and twixt an earnest and joke, enjoyed the lady. This one is to Nobo Daddy. Why art thou silent and invisible, Father of jealousy? Why dost thou hide thyself in clouds from every searching eye? Why darkness and obscurity in all thy words and laws? that none dare eat the fruit but from the willy serpent's jaws? Or is it because secrecy gains females' loud applause? This is the last one I will read, and it is called Nurse's Song. It says, when the voices of children are heard on the green, and whisperings are in the dale, the days of my youth rise fresh in my mind. My face turns green and pale. Then come home, my children, the sun is down, and the dews of night arise. Your spring and your day are wasted in play, and your winter and night in disguise. Oh. What did you think of those? Thank you for indulging in them with me. I definitely feel a lot sleepier than I did originally. Yeah. I already explained kind of the meaning that those books have for me, but I think it's interesting seeing the similarities of human perception even after a lot of time has passed. I don't think that will ever stop being fascinating to me. On a scale from 1 to 10, how sleepy are you now? I see. Well, I think I might turn the light back off so we can try and start settling in. You're looking sleepier and sleepier by the moment. Can you focus on my finger? Yeah, I can tell that your eyes are getting tired. This always helps me when I'm feeling tired, but I can't quite fall asleep. It's just so nice and relaxing. So nice. Focus. Focus you. Good night. Try and get some sleep with me. Maybe if we just lay with our eyes closed. I swear I'm not gonna snore. I promise.